Chapter 2029. Bang! Luo Qingtong sent a figure flying out of the ground with her sword. Her blood-red eyes had been open ever since she entered the land of the deceased immortals. As soon as she reached this place, she felt that there was a black shadow following her from underground. She purposely paused and the black shadow rushed out from the ground. It was sent flying by Luo Qingtong's sword which she had been ready to attack. Bang! The dark shadow fell heavily to the ground. Luo Qingtong saw that it was a corpse covered in green hair. The corpse's face was stiff and greenish-black, and its skin was like gold and iron. The green hair covered its body like a layer of green armor. What is this? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She leaped up and nailed the green-haired corpse to the ground with a single blow. The green-haired corpse roared and tried to get up from the ground, but Luo Qingtong accurately smashed its heart. Luo Qingtong wiped the life and death duality sword in her hand. She looked up at the corpse and saw that its clothes were very strange. It didn't look like someone from the hidden world or even someone from the true Spill continent. It's someone from the outer realms. At this moment, Little Pig jumped onto Luo Qingtong's shoulder. It looked at the green-haired corpse on the ground. It's a corpse of a powerhouse from the outer realms who was eroded by the death energy and evil energy in the land of the deceased immortals. Little Pig said with certainty, the opponent's strength should be above the venerable realm. Otherwise, the corpse wouldn't have been able to survive for so long without rotting. Generally, the corpses that died in the land of the deceased immortals would be affected by the aura of the land of the deceased immortals. They would be eroded and become part of the death energy and evil energy in the land of the deceased immortals. The corpse that was controlled by the blood-red immortal Jade Bone was like this. It was seriously rotten. But powerhouses above the venerable realm were different. They had already glimpsed a trace of the essence of the laws. Even after death, the aura around their bodies could prevent their bodies from decaying. Under the corrosion of the aura of the fallen immortal land, it was equivalent to completing the corpse refining process and being directly transformed into Yin corpses. The strength of these Yin corpses was not as strong as the main body. They only had about 1/10 of the main body's strength, but the terrifying thing was that they could instinctively use the martial arts and skills they had when they were alive. Moreover, they had no sense of pain, which made them very difficult to deal with in battle. The green-furred corpse Luo Qingtong encountered was probably around the Saint King realm. However, the strength it could unleash was above that of regular Saint Kings. If it hadn't encountered Luo Qingtong, even a peak Saint Emperor would have died under its sneak attack. And as the number of people the Yin corpse killed increased, its strength would also continue to increase. In the end, it would turn around and become even more powerful than the original body when it was alive. It was not impossible. After hearing Little Pig's words, Luo Qingtong immediately understood what was going on with this corpse. At first, she thought it was the same as the blood-red corpse that was controlled by the blood-red immortal Jade Bone. She was still vigilantly waiting for the blood-red shadow to pounce out. Unexpectedly, it wasn't like that. This green-furred corpse was a different kind of existence. However, there were really many strange things in the land of the deceased immortals. Chapter 2030. However, this harvest was also real. Luo Qingtong looked at the treasures she got from the green-haired corpse and raised her eyebrows. These foreign experts were powerful, so they naturally had a lot of good things on them. Although many things had been corroded by the aura of the graveyard of immortals and the passage of time, many things had been damaged. However, there were still some things left. Luo Qingtong put away the treasures that were damaged in different ways. These things were all treasures above the venerable realm. Even if they were damaged, they were still more powerful than ordinary Sage Realm treasures. Luo Qingtong was going to take all these treasures back and give them to Su Yu and Master Luo. If these treasures could be repaired and restored to their original power, it would be even better. However, this was a matter for the future. Luo Qingtong did not think about it for the time being. After putting away these treasures, she looked at the green-haired corpse again. The other party was turned into a Yin corpse in the graveyard of immortals. What if the corpse puppet was originally a Yin corpse? Under the aura of the graveyard of immortals, could it be greatly improved? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong released the corpse puppet of the Great Yong Saint in her hands. This corpse puppet of the Great Yong Saint was refined into a corpse by xuanhuan's blood. It was very fierce and violent. Luo Qingtong did not dare to release it casually, in case it was not under her control and brought disaster to the world. However, with the improvement of her strength, this corpse puppet was useless, so it had been kept in the 9-story exquisite pagoda. Now, she could use the aura of the graveyard of immortals to continue refining and improving it. After all, it was very difficult to find such a place full of death aura and evil aura. Not to mention the death aura and evil aura contained in this place were very strong. They were all transformed from the essence of the foreign experts after they died. It was very beneficial for the corpse puppet to refine corpses. Swish. Luo Qingtong released the corpse puppet of the great young saint. After the latter came out, he immediately sensed the dense death qi and evil qi in the land of the fallen immortals. He immediately roared excitedly. Then, it instinctively pounced on the green-haired corpse in front of Luo Qingtong and sucked away all the energy in its body. Then Luo Qingtong saw its strength increase rapidly. It reached the peak of the Holy General Realm and was close to the Holy Marquis Realm. All right. Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up. Sure enough, the corpse puppet of the great Yong Saint could easily grow in this environment. Just like that, he rose to the level of a holy general. Once it killed a few more powerful corpses, its strength would continue to increase. At that thought, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. With this corpse puppet of a great Yong Saint, he would have a powerful helper in this graveyard of immortals. This corpse puppet could play a huge role, and it was not something an ordinary cultivator could compare to. Luo Qingtong let the corpse puppet of the great Yong Saint leave by itself to hunt corpses nearby. Then she went into the hole made by the green-haired corpse. Below the hole was a huge underground lair. The green-haired corpse usually hid below, waiting for an opportunity to attack passing practitioners. When Luo Qingtong found it, she had already seen this huge lair. Chapter 2031. Thinking about it, this was quite normal. That green-furred corpse was a zombie-like existence. It couldn't poop or piss and it didn't need to eat. Hunting cultivators were usually finished off on the surface. Therefore, it wasn't surprising that this underground lair was so clean. After wandering around and discovering that there were no hidden dangers, Luo Qingtong prepared to enter seclusion to cultivate and refine the blood immortal jade bone in her hand. You stay here and guard it. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she sealed the hole above her head. With the corpse puppet of the great Yong Sage above and below, Luo Qingtong felt that she could cultivate in peace. For a short period of time, there shouldn't be anything that could disturb her. Okay. Little Pig nodded seriously, which was rare for him. It was very dangerous for Luo Qingtong to increase her strength in the land of the deceased immortals. Little Pig naturally had to protect her well. After all, Luo Qingtong's increase in strength was also very beneficial to him. His seal would be lifted in the future, and he would have to depend on Luo Qingtong. He had had enough of this pink Little Pig's body. Also, take care of the corpse puppet of the great Yong Sage outside. Don't let it be killed by others. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she gave half of the connection to the corpse puppet of the great Yong Sage to Little Pig. Little Pig was connected to her mind, so he easily took over the control. Okay, I got it. You can refine that immortal jade bone. Little Pig said to Luo Qingtong. His little pink hoof stepped on Luo Qingtong's body, then he said to her, "Oh right, you should also release that little golden mouse. That fellow is an expert at searching for treasures. It's rare to come to the land of the deceased immortals. If you don't take advantage of the treasures here, are you waiting for others to benefit?" As he spoke, he looked at Luo Qingtong smugly and said, "Let it go up there with that corpse puppet. If it has nothing to do, it can kill corpses and search for treasures. Don't waste it." Luo Qingtong also thought that this was reasonable, and she immediately released the little golden mouse. As soon as the gold-seeking hamster came out, it hugged her hair and rubbed against her cheek. Creak creak. Big treasure, big treasure. That's enough. Bring back the other treasures first, then you can freeload. As Little Pig spoke, he immediately used his little hoof to pick up the little gold mouse. The latter squeaked and protested resolutely. It was rare for it to come out, but it was not allowed to carry the big baby. "When you bring back those treasures from outside, I'll let you hug me as much as you want." Little Pig slyly said, "A treasure in exchange for a hug." Creak creak. "No, at least twice." The little golden mouse waved its little claws and bargained with it. Luo Qingtong watched their interaction and her lips twitched. This guy actually used her to sell her body. However, the little gold mouse obviously liked this. After she bargained with Little Pig for a while, they reached an agreement. A treasure in exchange for 2 hugs, and she could come out to play when she had nothing to do. In an instant, the little gold mouse happily dug a hole and ran out of the ground. It wanted to unleash its primordial power and create a precious land for its precious treasure. Chapter 2032. That's right, I want to split the treasures 20 to 80. Master, you don't have the heart to take advantage of a pitiful little girl like me, right? It looked at Luo Qingtong with its teary eyes. It hurts my eyes. Luo Qingtong turned its face to the side. Also, I won't tell Qianren about this. Take your 20% as hush money. She wanted to sell her body and get a share of her loot. How could there be such a good thing? Little Pig was dumbfounded. Master, you can't do this. It looked like it wanted to cry but had no tears. Really? Luo Qingtong looked at it leisurely. So you chose to let Qianren know? Little Pig was completely terrified. Forget about that king of jealousy. Little Pig recalled the countless tragic experiences he had gone through. Although treasures were precious, his life was even more valuable. It had better behave. Little Pig shrank to the side while whimpering. Luo Qingtong, on the other hand, was focused on improving her strength. She held the crimson immortal jade bone in her hand and began to absorb and refine the power within it. While Luo Qingtong was improving her strength in the Broken Star Valley. On the other hand, the people from Beast Taming King's Valley and Celestial Palace escaped from the depths of the abyss in a sorry state. Their robes were tattered and tattered. Their robes were torn to shreds. It was unknown what kind of ferocious beast had scratched it. Many of them had deep wounds on their bodies. Some of them were so bloody that their internal organs and bones could be seen. When the people of Beast Taming Valley and Celestial Palace ran out from the depths of the Broken Star Valley, beams of invisible light mixed with strong winds swept out from behind them. Then the people running at the back suddenly screamed shrilly. Their voices were sharp and high-pitched, and they were filled with a deep sense of fear. A disciple of the Beast Taming Valley was torn to shreds by an invisible claw in front of everyone. The other Celestial Palace disciple's eyes suddenly bulged out. His face was hideous and terrified to the extreme. Then he reached out and scratched himself with a miserable expression, until his whole body was torn to pieces. In the end, he let out a bestial roar and charged towards the disciples of Beast Taming King Valley and Celestial Palace not far from him. He opened his mouth and bit at them. Ah! The person who had been pushed down by him screamed in a shrill voice. No matter how he attacked, the other party remained firmly on top of him and did not move an inch. The other party bit viciously at him, causing large chunks of flesh and blood to fly. By the time the Celestial Palace disciple on top of him was killed by the other person under him would not be able to survive. A large group of people from Beast Taming Valley and Celestial Palace screamed in a shrill voice. Beast Taming King Guguju and the Celestial Palace Master were the first to rush out. Their faces were unsightly. Especially the Celestial Palace Master. He had promised Beast Taming King Guguju to come and get something for them, but he did not expect it to be so dangerous inside. How was this asking them to come and help? This was clearly asking them to die. Chapter 2033. He had almost died in there. As for the Beast Tamer King Guguju, there was no need to even mention him. This time he proposed to cooperate with the Master of the Celestial Palace. He thought that it would be easy for him to enter the palace and take out the 5th beast taming incantation. Who would have thought that there would be such a thing in the depths of the cave? Furthermore, it was overwhelming. Almost all of them had been left behind in there. He looked at the last few people in the Broken Star Valley with an ugly face, dying miserably in front of him. Every corpse had either been bitten beyond recognition or had their stomachs ripped open. No one knew what had viciously scratched them to death. Then these corpses stood up shakily in front of them. They dragged their broken limbs and intestines, which were almost all over the ground, and slowly walked inside. The people from Beast Taming King's Valley and Celestial Palace felt their blood run cold. One had to know that the immortal jade bones in their bodies were still intact. It was impossible for them to be corroded to this extent by the aura of the fallen immortal land. It was done by those things inside. That frightening thing. Beast Tamer King Guguju, I'm afraid that the people of Celestial Palace won't be able to help you. Goodbye. The owner of Celestial Palace looked at those corpses staggering into the depths of Broken Stars Valley with a horrified look. He then turned around and was about to leave with his subordinates. Hold on. The Beast Tamer King Guguju looked at him and coldly shouted, Master of the Celestial Palace, if you want to help someone, help them to the end. Since your people from the Celestial Palace have already agreed to help us, and you've already paid such a huge price to enter, wouldn't it be a pity to give up now? We, the Beast Taming King's Valley, are willing to promise that if you help us obtain that item, we, the Beast Taming King's Valley, will help you people from the Celestial Palace form contracts with demonic beasts in the future. I'll give you a fixed quota every year. How about that? Beast Tamer King Guguju. The Master of Celestial Palace looked furious. This isn't a matter of promises. Those things are in there. With just us alone, it's impossible for us to shake them. How can we help you obtain the things inside? The Celestial Palace Master was also moved by Gu Guju's promise. With the help of the beast-taming King Valley, only a few dozen people would be able to form contracts with demonic beasts. For the people of Celestial Palace, how much of a boost would that be? However, no matter how great the increase in strength was, the people of Celestial Palace had to be alive to take it. Those terrible things in there. If the people of Celestial Palace wanted to help the people of beast-taming King's Valley obtain the items inside, they didn't know what kind of price they would have to pay. Even if all of them were to fill in, it might not be possible. Under such circumstances, even if the beast-taming King's Valley were to offer them a huge reward, he wouldn't dare to accept it. Seeing that the people of Celestial Palace were about to retreat, the beast-tamer King Gu Guju gritted his teeth. We, the beast-taming King's Valley, will gather people from all over to help. When the time comes, the other sects will act together. The pressure on us will be a lot less. Let them restrain those things outside and we'll go inside to get those things. If we're fast enough, we should be able to do it. Hearing his words, the master of Celestial Palace suddenly stopped in his tracks. Chapter 2034. What the other party said couldn't be what he was thinking, could it? Before he could finish his words, Beast-Tamer King Gu Guju had already seen through his thoughts. He nodded and said, "That's exactly what you're thinking. We'll use people from other sects as cannon fodder to attract the attention of those things. We'll take the opportunity to rush to the innermost area." Beast-Tamer King Gu Guju's face was grim. It was basically impossible for sects above the third class to come and help them. Because those people were busy improving their strength and looking for opportunities in the land of the deceased immortals. However, it was possible for third class and below sects to come. Because they might not be able to gain much in the land of the deceased immortals. If they could build a relationship with those sects, they would be happy to come and help them. At that time, they would use those people to attract the attention of those terrible things. As long as there were enough people, they would definitely be able to reduce the number of those things. At that time they could take the opportunity to break through. Beast-Tamer King Gu Guju was determined to get the fifth part of the Beast-Tamer incantation from the Shattered Star Valley. He didn't know why, but ever since he knew that the Holy Book was spied on and the location of the Shattered Star Valley was known to Luo Qingtong, he was always frightened. He was afraid that Luo Qingtong would do something that would ruin their plan to get the fifth part of the Beast-Tamer incantation. Therefore he was not going to wait any longer. Anyway, Luo Qingtong already knew the location of the Shattered Star Valley. She could reveal it to the public at any time. In that case, what was the point of hiding it? The most important thing was to gather everyone and take out the things inside. Thinking of this, he immediately said to the Master of Celestial Palace, "In this way, the losses on both sides will be minimized. You people from Celestial Palace only need to help us at the last moment. What do you think?" Beast-Tamer King Gu Guju's words made the Master of Celestial Palace feel a rush of excitement. If that was the case, it was indeed a rare opportunity for the Celestial Palace. As he thought about it, he immediately nodded and said, "Yes, if there are enough people, we of Celestial Palace can continue to help you." As long as the people of Celestial Palace were not sacrificed, it did not matter to them how many people died. Moreover, those people who entered the land of the fallen immortals should have been prepared to die. It didn't matter if he was killed or used to death. Alright. Beast-Tamer King Gu Guju nodded and immediately ordered his men to make arrangements. Beside him, Eldarin and the others did not say anything. The beast-taming King Gu Guju was right, the fifth beast-taming law must be taken out. As for the location of the Broken Star Valley, it didn't matter if it was exposed. Anyway, when Luo Qingtong pried the Holy Book, the location of the Broken Star Valley was no longer a secret. As long as he could get the incantation, everything would be worth it. While the people of Beast-Tamer Valley were spreading the news of the Broken Star Valley, waiting for other people to come to the land of the fallen immortals, in the underground cave where Luo Qingtong was. Bang! At the place where the young girl was sitting, an extremely tyrannical burst of energy suddenly erupted from the place where the girl was sitting. In an instant, the walls of the cave around her made a series of puff, puff, puff sounds. Countless small holes appeared in the walls. The powerful energy poured into the holes was extremely sharp, and no one knew how many meters it extended into the walls. The soil above Luo Qingtong's head was completely penetrated. Chapter 2035. Bang! A shattering sound suddenly erupted from within her body. Then, as if something was being generated from within her body, a powerful and frightening power suddenly erupted from within her body. Bang! The entire underground lair shook violently from the explosion in Luo Qingtong's body. A tyrannical force that was completely different from the Saint King realm suddenly shone brightly from within Luo Qingtong's body like a scorching sun. Saint Emperor realm. Feeling the new force in her body, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Finally she took another step forward. She was a little closer to that man. Her eyes shone brightly and shone brightly. In this enclosed dark space, her eyes were extremely bright and dazzling. Beside her, Little Pig also hopped up to her. Hey hey hey. Master, you've broken through. It looked happily at the fierce aura emanating from Luo Qingtong's body. Because she had just broken through, Luo Qingtong's aura had not been completely restrained. That exposed sharpness was as sharp as a sword. In this enclosed underground lair, it cut in all directions. Yes. Luo Qingtong looked at it and nodded. Then she asked, how long did I break through? Although in her heart, she estimated that it would not take too long this time. After all, the power in this blood-colored celestial jade bone was extraordinarily pure, and the power of blood qi was also very strong. It was enough for Luo Qingtong to raise her strength level in a short period of time without needing to replenish her energy to fill the gap in her cultivation level. However, Luo Qingtong still asked to avoid missing too much time in the land of the deceased immortals. One had to know that the aura in the forbidden area would weaken enough for people to enter in at most 7 days. 4 days. Little Pig said. It also knew that Luo Qingtong was worried, so it took note of the time. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded. Then she said to Little Pig, continue to guard here. I'll go see Qianren. Thinking of the man who could not enter from outside, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Her mental strength entered the 9 netherworld phoenix ring on her left ring finger. Because of the unique aura in the land of the deceased immortals, Yi Qianxian's soul could not appear by her side through the connection between the 9 netherworld phoenix ring and the 10-sided dragon ring. After all, that man's soul was a great supplement to the aura of death in the land of the deceased immortals. Who knew how many evil beings would covet it? The entire land of the deceased immortals, the entire land of the deceased immortals. However, even if Yi Qianren couldn't come in, it didn't mean that Luo Qingtong couldn't go out to see him. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up and she closed her eyes. Her mental strength followed the connection of the 9 phoenix ring on her left ring finger and extended to the 10-directional dragon ring. Whoosh! Outside the land of the deceased immortals, Yi Qianxian stood on top of a mountain with his hands behind his back. He looked at the scene in front of him. At this moment, the 10-sided dragon ring on his left ring finger suddenly moved. Soon after, a small figure rushed out from within. Qianren. Luo Qingtong's little face was smiling. She was both charming and cute. She looked at the man's face close to her and pounced on him. It's been so many days. Did you miss me? Chapter 2036. That small and soft hand was not even as big as Yi Qianxian's lips. The latter seemed to have sensed something when the Shifang dragon ring moved. When Luo Qingtong pounced on him, he had already removed the protection around his body. He even waved his sleeves to support Luo Qingtong so that she would not fall from his body. Why did you suddenly come out? Yi Qianxian looked at the small person in front of him. The soft and real touch on his lips put him in a very good mood. Luo Qingtong's 9 nether phoenix ring and his Shifang dragon ring were connected. Even if Luo Qingtong was only a soul, the feeling of kissing was the same as a real kiss. Even when he touched the girl he could feel the same warmth and softness. It was just that Luo Qingtong's figure was too small. Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong's small body and his eyes darkened. After kissing her back, he immediately wrapped her in his palm and asked her in a hoarse voice. Did she miss him? Yi Qianxian thought that Luo Qingtong might have specially come out of the land of the deceased immortals to see him because she missed him. He was very happy. Luo Qingtong did not let him down. She smiled and said, of course it's because I miss you. Luo Qingtong had never been a pretentious person. Since she was already with Yi Qianxian, she naturally would not be stingy to let him know her feelings for him. At that moment she openly told him how much she missed Yi Qianren. When Yi Qianxian heard this, the corners of his lips curled up. The depth of his eyes as well as the coldness and sharpness of his blade were all retracted. Looking at the little girl sitting in his palm, his gaze was indescribably gentle and soft, carrying a doting and protective care that could drown a person to death. This sovereign also misses you very much. It was rare for Yi Qianren's ears to turn slightly red when she said this. He rarely made public the love in his heart. His love for Luo Qingtong had always been silent and restrained. He did more than he said. He could violate many of his principles and pride for Luo Qingtong. But the words of love he said to Luo Qingtong could be said with one hand. His innate pride and nobility made it difficult for him to say anything pleasant and humble in front of Luo Qingtong. But in the process of getting along with the girl, he almost instinctively lowered his status to cater to her and let her be unbridled. All of his pride and principles, all of his persistence and arrogance, they were all broken for her. Haha. When Yi Qianxian spoke, Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up with a smile. She liked the way Yi Qianxian doted on her. It made her feel like she was placed in the palm of his hand, loved and tolerated at all costs. This feeling was very fascinating. If it was said that Luo Qingtong's initial desire for Yi Qianren was due to her yearning for the power in this world, she instinctively wanted to take this man for herself. However, she was afraid that he would not be under her control, so she purposely stayed away from him. But now Luo Qingtong had truly fallen in love with Yi Qianxian. Apart from grandfather Luo, this man was the most tolerant and doting person in the world for her. But grandfather Luo's kindness was mostly because of the original owner. Chapter 2037. He fell in love with her because she was Luo Qi. She was herself. That was why he chose to be with her. From the beginning to the end, Yi Qianxian only saw her, the supreme ocular sorcerer from the 24th century. Luo Qingtong thought about it and kissed Yi Qianxian on the cheek. Then she said with a smile, "My strength has broken through to the Holy Emperor realm." She briefly explained what happened in the land of the deceased immortals. Then she said, "I have the corpse puppet of the great Yong sage following me. You don't have to worry. His strength is increasing very quickly. It shouldn't take long for it to become stronger than me." Yi Qianxian nodded. He supported the girl's mini form with one hand so that she could lean on his cheek. His face was expressionless and he didn't say anything. He could pick up Luo Qingtong at any time. But if he did so, the land of the deceased immortals would collapse and disappear because of his interference. Therefore he wouldn't do it unless he had no other choice. He also wouldn't interfere with Luo Qingtong's training in the land of the deceased immortals. The girl didn't want to stay under his wing. She wanted to become stronger and stand shoulder to shoulder with him. This was one of the processes she had to go through. Yi Qianxian respected her pride and thoughts. Moreover, his young lady was supposed to be someone who stood in the sky with him. The domineering aura on her body had never been inferior to his. Once the young phoenix rose with the wind, it would soar for 90,000 miles. He was waiting for the treasure in his hand. The day when the young phoenix cried and the world shook. "I'll wait for you," he said to Luo Qingtong. "I'll wait for your return." Of course. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. The two leaned against each other and talked a lot. Most of the time it was Luo Qingtong talking and Yi Qianxian listening. The two of them waited quietly. Under the setting sun, Yi Qianxian's figure drew an extremely long and narrow shadow on the mountain peak. Luo Qingtong's small figure stood on his shoulder, supported by one of his hands. She leaned against his cheek, talking and laughing. Time passed slowly and peacefully. Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others watched from afar and did not come to disturb them. After Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian chatted for a while, her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Someone had touched her body. Luo Qingtong's body was in an underground lair in the land of the deceased immortals. The protective measures were excellent, so no one should be able to touch her body. The only possibility was Little Pig. Was it calling her back? Luo Qingtong's mind raced. After saying goodbye to Yi Qianxian, her figure disappeared. Swoosh. In the underground lair in the land of the deceased immortals, Luo Qingtong's consciousness returned. Her eyes suddenly opened. What's going on? She looked at Little Pig beside her. The latter was lying on her body, poking her with its little hooves. The movements that Luo Qingtong sensed just now were all caused by Little Pig. It's that corpse puppet and the little golden mouse. Something happened. Seeing that Luo Qingtong had woken up, Little Pig immediately jumped out of her body. I sensed something wrong outside. They seem to have been kidnapped. Chapter 2038. And the little golden mouse on his body was also intercepted by someone. It wanted to go out and take a look, but wasn't Luo Qingtong still asleep? It was afraid that something would happen to Luo Qingtong after it left, so it could only wake her up. Anyway, she wanted to talk to that man, and there would be plenty of opportunities after they went out. It was about time to meet him. Hearing this, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly narrowed. Let's go out and take a look. As she spoke, she directly hugged the little pig and rushed out of the ground. Bang! Somewhere not far from where Luo Qingtong was in seclusion, a group of people were holding weapons and besieging the corpse puppet of the great Yong saint. Ah! I didn't expect our luck to be so good to encounter such a corpse with treasures hanging all over its body, There are too many treasures on this corpse. This group of people looked at the treasures hanging on the corpse puppet of the great young saint with a covetous expression. The little golden mouse was really awesome. With the corpse puppet of the great young saint, it had almost cleared out all the corpses in the surrounding dozens of miles. Because it specifically picked the corpses with treasures, and most of those corpses were relatively strong, the corpse puppet of the great young saint was also very messy after a series of battles. From the clothes on its body, it was impossible to tell that it was a person from the true Spill continent. Of course, even if they could tell, these people probably wouldn't care. Because their gazes were all attracted by the dazzling array of treasures on the corpse puppet. With so many treasures, even those people from first-class sects might not be able to obtain them in the land of the fallen immortals if they didn't have a certain amount of luck. Everyone was drooling with desire, and they immediately attacked the corpse puppet of the great young saint with even more strength. Bang bang bang. Their attacks heavily bombarded the corpse puppet of the great young saint, splashing sparks and energy in all directions. The corpse puppet of the great young saint had already raised its strength to the level of a saint king during this period of killing corpses. It was a corpse puppet refined from a corpse, so it was like a fish in water in the land of the fallen immortals. Moreover, because they were refined into corpses by living relatives, they were even more powerful than ordinary corpse puppets and corpses. Even the corpses in the land of the fallen immortals were no match for it unless they were particularly powerful. They could only be suppressed by the ferocious aura emanating from its body. Now that these people's attacks landed on his body, he immediately roared in anger. He roared furiously like a wild beast with a tearing sound of metal. Then he suddenly pounced on these people. The little gold mouse popped its head out from his bosom and looked at the crowd that was attacking them with all their might. It squeaked, and its voice was filled with anger. These guys were too evil. It had specially found these things to exchange for hugs for its big baby. These bad guys actually wanted to snatch them away. How could this be? Big Rock beat them up. That's right, the little gold mouse called the corpse puppet Big Rock, who told him to be as hard as a rock and so powerful. The little gold mouse's voice mixed with the roar of the corpse puppet resounded in the sky. Chapter 2039. I didn't expect this corpse puppet to have a gold-seeking mouse. This is a very rare treasure. The gold-seeking mouse's function was to search for treasures everywhere. With them, almost no treasure would be missed. This kind of demonic beast was extremely rare in the hidden world. When the people of Celestial Palace obtained it before, they were very careful. They didn't dare to publicize it. Even after Elder Xie and the others were killed, they didn't dare to announce to the world that they were looking for the gold-seeking mouse. First, the news of the treasure map couldn't be exposed. Second, this gold-seeking mouse was precious enough that they didn't dare to publicize it. They thought that after finding the murderer, they would take back the gold-seeking mouse and the treasure map. However, who would have thought that the one who killed Elder Xie and the others would be Luo Qingtong, a girl that they had never put in their eyes and never doubted. Not to mention Luo Qingtong, even the people of True Spill Continent and the people of Celestial Palace had never doubted it. They only thought that the people of the hidden world and True Spill Continent killed Elder Xie, but they didn't know that they were chasing in the wrong direction. In the end, they completely missed the opportunity and didn't find Luo Qingtong at all. After that, they didn't have any more chances. The people besieging the corpse puppet looked at the little golden mouse with surprise. They thought that they had struck it rich. With the little golden mouse, their future gains in the land of the deceased immortals would reach a whole new level. Not only that, but in the hidden world they wouldn't have to worry about finding treasures to use. However, they didn't think that this little golden mouse would appear here, and that the corpse puppet had so many treasures on it. Obviously, it wasn't a coincidence, but it was raised by someone. But everyone had been dazzled by the dazzling treasures and didn't think of this at all. Even if some people suspected it, who would have thought that the corpse in the fallen immortal land would be controlled by someone? No one thought in this direction at all. Even if some people were suspicious, they only felt that it was a little strange and thought that their opportunity had come. That was why they encountered such a strange thing. Everyone worked even harder to attack the corpse puppet. Almost all of them were at the Saint King realm, and a few of them were even at the Saint Emperor realm. Their combined might was astonishing. Even though this great young saint's corpse puppet possessed astonishing strength, comparable to a peak sage emperor, and was like a fish in water in the graveyard of immortals, receiving the support of the aura of the graveyard of immortals, it was still forced back by their attacks. His skin, which was as hard as iron, was also cut open by their attacks. Creak creak creak. Seeing this scene, the little gold mouse instantly cried out anxiously. Big Stone, you have to hold on. If you can't hold on, these treasures along with me will be snatched away by these people. That won't do. Big baby, come quickly. Someone stole our treasures. The little gold mouse cried out anxiously. It wanted to slip off the corpse puppet's body and leave to find Luo Qingtong and Little Pig. However, those people had been keeping an eye on it for a long time. How could they let it leave? As soon as it made a move, someone would target it and force it back. Chapter 2040. Bang! Seeing those people besieging the corpse puppet and forcing it to retreat repeatedly, countless wounds appeared all over its body. Luo Qingtong's gaze was slightly cold. She raised her hand and blasted an attack forward. Boom! The attack landed in front of the corpse puppet of the great young saint. Together with the corpse puppet's attack, it blocked the attacks of those besieging it. With the help of this attack, the corpse puppet of the great young saint suddenly broke free from the besiegement of those people. It roared angrily and fled into the distance. It was Luo Qingtong who had ordered it to leave, lest it be besieged and killed here, wasting her efforts for nothing. The corpse puppet of the great young saint obeyed the order and quickly disappeared before everyone's eyes. It rushed to the underground lair where Luo Qingtong had previously secluded herself to recuperate. Seeing the corpse puppet of the great young saint leave, those besieging the corpse puppet were instantly enraged. They looked at Luo Qingtong and shouted angrily, "Scoundrel, who are you? You actually dare to let our prey go?" These people had long regarded the corpse puppet of the great young saint as theirs. Now that it had escaped, how could they not be angry? Especially since this corpse puppet was released by Luo Qingtong. Thinking that the other party had just openly attacked them, hindered their movements, and let the corpse puppet escape, the crowd was furious and immediately attacked Luo Qingtong. "You don't need to care who I am. The important thing is that what you touched is mine." Luo Qingtong's gaze was cold as she looked at the crowd in front of her. At her feet stood the little golden mouse that had just come down from the corpse puppet of the great young saint. The latter stood by her feet and complained to her with a series of gestures. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The little golden mouse was furious. It angrily told Luo Qingtong that it and Big Stone were walking peacefully on the road when these people suddenly rushed out and attacked them. Big Stone wanted to leave, but these people didn't let him and wanted to snatch the treasures on them. Big treasures, big treasures. You have to uphold justice for us. Big Stone was beaten so badly by them. These people were simply taking advantage of their power to bully the corpse. No, there was also the mouse. Those were treasures that it had obtained with great difficulty. How hard it was. When the little golden mouse said that it was wronged, it jumped onto Luo Qingtong's foot and hugged her calf. Luo Qingtong looked at its gestures and narrowed her eyes. The little pig in her bosom had already translated the little gold mouse's words for her to hear. These people had coveted the treasures on her corpse puppet, so they wanted to rob and kill her so that they could take those treasures for themselves. Together with this little golden mouse. Luo Qingtong let the little golden mouse climb onto her shoulder and then looked up at these people. The latter and the others didn't expect to get such an answer. That corpse puppet, its treasures, and this little golden mouse actually all belonged to this young girl in front of them? How could she control the corpses in the land of the deceased immortals? The crowd was thinking in bewilderment. Suddenly, a martial artist raised his hand and pointed at Luo Qingtong, shouting, "I know who she is. It's her. Luo Qingtong, that night I." Following this martial artist's words, everyone's expression became even more surprised. Chapter 2041. Luo Qingtong. Night I? None of the people present were unfamiliar with these two names. Previously in the hidden world, the matter between Celestial Palace and Beast-Taming King Valley had caused a great uproar. Even the people from the Star Alliance Palace were involved. Everyone had heard enough gossip and naturally knew what glorious deeds Luo Qingtong, who was also known as Night Eye, had done in these two families. Not to mention, at the entrance of the land of the deceased immortals, Luo Qingtong had personally admitted that she was the one who had dealt with the people from Beast-Taming King Valley and Celestial Palace. The conflict between Celestial Palace and Beast-Taming King Valley was completely orchestrated by her. Not only that, but she also had the treasure map that the first-class sects and even the Star Alliance Palace coveted. Thinking of the various benefits that this treasure map could bring, and then thinking of the treasures on the corpse puppet that Luo Qingtong had released, everyone looked at Luo Qingtong with surprise and greed. This girl had too many good things on her. Previously, they had some doubts and felt that it was impossible for anyone to control the corpses in the land of the deceased immortals. However, after hearing about Luo Qingtong's identity, they could no longer doubt her words. After all, she had the treasure map of the land of the deceased immortals. What was the big deal about being able to control the corpses in the land of the deceased immortals? However, watching so many treasures disappear in front of their eyes, the crowd felt somewhat unreconciled. Not to mention that Luo Qingtong had even greater benefits. One had to know that although they might not have enough strength to get their hands on the treasure map, they could use it to trade with others. Presumably, those first-class sects would be very willing to use all kinds of promises and benefits in exchange for the treasure map in their hands. Not to mention, the people from beast-taming King Valley and Celestial Palace had been looking for Luo Qingtong all this time. If they could capture the girl and hand her over to the people from beast-taming King Valley and Celestial Palace, in addition to the treasure map, they didn't know how many benefits they would get. Perhaps they could also get a share of the good things in the forbidden area. Thinking of this, the crowd's gaze towards Luo Qingtong changed. They looked at each other, then slowly spread out and surrounded Luo Qingtong. Ridiculous. At this moment, an expert at the peak of the Sage Emperor stage sneered at Luo Qingtong and said as he looked at Luo Qingtong, "Luo Qingtong, I think you saw that we were about to get a good thing, so you deliberately came to cause trouble." The group of people pretended not to see the little golden mouse on Luo Qingtong's body being intimate with her, and said blindly and coldly, "You let go of our prey, so now use yourself to take the blame." They looked greedily at Luo Qingtong, thinking of the benefits they could get after capturing her, and immediately sneered. "Luo Qingtong, hand over the treasure map and the little golden mouse on your body, and call back the corpse and we'll spare your life." Another Sage Emperor stage expert looked at Luo Qingtong and said. His expression was sinister. They would naturally spare Luo Qingtong's life, but they didn't know if the people from beast-taming King Valley and Celestial Palace would spare her life. Chapter 2042. So, you want to snatch it by force? Luo Qingtong's gaze swept across the group of people who were surrounding her. She raised her eyes slightly, and the smile on her lips was cold. These people coveted the treasures on her corpse puppet. She hadn't even made a move against them, but they couldn't wait to make a move against her? They wanted everything on her and they weren't even going to let her off? Using herself as a bargaining chip? Sure. But they couldn't afford to pay that price. What do you mean by snatching? We just want to recoup our losses. The group of people said shamelessly. You let go of the prey that we deserve, so you naturally have to pay the price. And the price was Luo Qingtong herself. All right. Luo Qingtong looked at them and the smile on her lips grew colder. She stood there, her red robes fluttering in the wind. She was alluring and domineering. Her beautiful face was filled with an evil and seductive aura. Since that's the case, come and get it yourselves. As she spoke, Luo Qingtong stretched out her right hand, and the life and death duality sword appeared in her hand. She suddenly grasped it. With a whoosh, a sword light suddenly slashed out from her hand. She had just advanced to the Holy Emperor realm, and this was a good opportunity to see how much her strength had increased. Bang! When Luo Qingtong's sword light slashed out, the people surrounding her also attacked. Everyone be careful. Don't kill her. Otherwise, we won't be able to get the location of the treasure map. That's right. Everyone be careful. We still have to hand this person over to the beast-taming King Valley and Celestial Palace. With their hatred for her, they'll definitely pay a huge price to exchange it with us. Apart from that, there will be many other benefits. Let's not be careless and lose it. The group looked at Luo Qingtong as if they were looking at a mountain of gold. As for the girl's attack, they didn't even take it seriously. She was just an early-stage Holy Emperor. Although the girl's speed of improvement was monstrous, and she had advanced to the Holy Emperor realm in such a short time. But there was more than one Holy Emperor realm expert among them. Not to mention that these Holy King realm experts weren't weak. Under the encirclement, Luo Qingtong was just an early-stage Holy Emperor. Even a peak Saint Emperor or an expert who had just entered the Saint Emperor realm wouldn't be able to escape their encirclement with ease. However, just as they were thinking about it, countless flaming auras flew out from Luo Qingtong's attack with a whoosh. This was the soul seal power of the soul of 10,000 flames that Luo Qingtong had comprehended. She's the holy strength and hers is and it's her to attack. S's. Under these circumstances, Luo Qingtong's ordinary attacks were enough to crush regular Saint Kings. The sword light in her hand directly collided with the attacks of those people. In an instant, countless flames flew out and cancelled out the attacks of those people. The attacks of those Holy Emperor realm experts were completely shattered. Boom, boom, boom. Luo Qingtong's attack went straight in. The sword light was like a dragon, and it instantly slashed at those who were attacking her. Chapter 2043. What? None of them had expected their attacks to be split apart so easily. They had already retracted their attacks and were waiting confidently to capture Luo Qingtong. However, who would have thought that the situation would be completely different from what they had expected? Luo Qingtong's attack had directly shattered their attacks. The attacks of a group of people were actually unable to do anything to the Saint Emperor Realm girl in front of them. Not only that, the splattering flames and sword light had also slashed their bodies. In just an instant, more than half of the people who had rushed to the front were killed by Luo Qingtong's sword light. As for the people behind him, they were also heavily injured by this sword attack. What's going on? Everyone was astonished. Luo Qingtong was only a Saint Emperor Realm expert. Moreover, she had just entered the Saint Emperor Realm. How could she be so powerful? Even with so many of them attacking together, they still couldn't do anything to her? Moreover, there were even a few Saint Emperor Realm experts amongst them. No matter how they looked at it, the one who should be crushed should be Luo Qingtong. While everyone was shocked, Luo Qingtong had already leaped up again. She did not intend to give these people any time to react. At this moment, a sword light slashed down again. Annihilation. The extremely violent sword light seemed to carry an endless amount of light as it swept past in front of him. Everywhere it passed, the fog in the land of the deceased immortals trembled violently. At this moment, countless auras and forces were constantly being destroyed and transformed by the power of Luo Qingtong's sword light, strengthening her attack. Bang! The end of the sword light cut the ground with a loud bang. Almost in an instant, it had cut a deep gully in the ground. Then, it slammed heavily towards the people who had besieged Luo Qingtong. The latter and the others were horrified. Those Saint Emperors could feel the power of Luo Qingtong's attack. It was enough to kill all of them here. Luo Qingtong was too powerful. How could she be so strong? How was this a strength that a Saint King could possess? Even an ordinary Saint Emperor Realm expert would probably not be inferior to him in any way. Only now did they realize what kind of monster they were up against. Previously, they had wanted to capture Luo Qingtong and send her to the beast-taming King Valley and Celestial Palace in exchange for benefits. Now they had no idea how ridiculous their thoughts were. They were already very lucky that Luo Qingtong did not find trouble with them. But they still wanted to find trouble with Luo Qingtong. Everyone's hearts were filled with regret and fear. When they saw Luo Qingtong's attack coming, they hurriedly tried to stop it. Quick! Let's attack together. Stop her attack, then we'll immediately scatter and escape. Everyone's faces were filled with panic. Facing Luo Qingtong's attack, they immediately used 100% of their strength. They all used their best attacks and mobilized all the strength in their bodies to attack Luo Qingtong's sword light. However, Luo Qingtong's sword light could eliminate and transform everyone's attack into her own strength. Under such circumstances, unless it was a Saint Emperor who was much stronger than Luo Qingtong, only then would they be able to block Luo Qingtong's attack. Chapter 2044. However, among this group of people, there were Saint Emperors who were stronger than Luo Qingtong. There were not even ordinary Saint Emperors. They could only watch helplessly as the powerful sword light transformed all the power they had blasted out in an instant. Their attacks were all transformed into the power of Luo Qingtong's attack. This made her sword light even more majestic and filled with murderous intent. Bang! Their bodies were ruthlessly slashed by the sword light that swept past them. The Saint Kings at the front were the first to be struck by this attack. They cried out as they were chopped to pieces. As for the other Saint King realm cultivators, they were directly turned into ashes by the violent power of this powerful attack. It wasn't that no one wanted to turn around and run in such a confrontation. However, the power of the soul of 10,000 flames that Luo Qingtong had shaken off with her attack had long been suspended in the air. Countless fiery auras surrounded this area and turned it into a death zone. Anyone who was in this forbidden zone would die. Ah! Tragic screams resounded in the sky. The sky was filled with flying flesh and blood. Luo Qingtong's figure slowly descended in this scene of blood and death. Her fluttering black hair mixed with her blood-red robes, coupled with her gorgeous appearance and cold smile. In this hellish scene, it was as if there was a god of death and an Azura dancer who stepped on blood and was bathed in blood and death. She gently stepped on the ground that had been shaken off by her aura and was thus not stained with a trace of blood. Looking at the scene around her, her expression did not change at all. Since they dared to attack her, they should be prepared to die. Luo Qingtong's cold eyes swept across the crowd in front of her. Suddenly, she saw a figure who was wrapped in countless flames and had not been burned to death. The other party's figure was shrouded in the power of the soul of 10,000 flames. He was constantly screaming and struggling, but there was a faint power lingering around him that enveloped his body. It seemed that there was some kind of treasure protecting him, allowing him to resist the power that Luo Qingtong had arranged around him. This Saint King Realm cultivator had already escaped 100 meters away from the area that Luo Qingtong had set up. If it weren't for the fact that all the people around him had been wiped out, Luo Qingtong would not have been able to see him. Looking at his figure, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and was about to raise her sword to end him. At this moment, Little Pig, who was beside her, suddenly saw something on the man's body. "Hey, wait. Master, it's the jade pendant that your father has." Little Pig's voice sounded, and Luo Qingtong's hand suddenly stopped swinging her sword. Her gaze swept past the martial artist's neck and immediately saw a small jade pendant hanging on his neck. At this moment, the jade pendant was flickering with a faint light that enveloped the cultivator. It turned out that the power of this jade pendant was what helped this cultivator resist the power of Luo Qingtong's soul of 10,000 flames. And this jade pendant was exactly the same as the one that Luo Qingtong obtained from the Celestial Palace Protector. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and appeared in front of the cultivator in a flash. She raised her hand and withdrew the power of the soul of 10,000 flames. "Where did you get this jade pendant?" Chapter 2045. The latter had just escaped from the flame attack. Before he could recover from his shock, Luo Qingtong grabbed his neck and lifted him up. Looking at the jade pendant in Luo Qingtong's hand, the King Realm warrior did not think he was lucky. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said in a trembling voice, "Yes, I got it in the land of the deceased immortals." Luo Qingtong naturally knew that he got this jade pendant in the land of the deceased immortals because this jade pendant was shrouded in an extremely strong death chi. Compared to the one she got from the Celestial Palace Guardian, this one was much more dilapidated and damaged, and its light was far less intense. It should be known that the jade pendant worn by the Celestial Palace Protector had been able to withstand Yi Qianren's attack for a while. The power of this jade pendant was far from what this jade pendant could compare to. If Luo Qingtong had not withdrawn the power of the soul of all flames in time, the jade pendant on this warrior would have been destroyed. Therefore, this jade pendant must have been obtained after entering the land of the deceased immortals. If not for this, Luo Qingtong would not have spared this King Realm warrior's life. "Take me to that place." Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She had been looking for Luo Jinghong's whereabouts. No matter what, she wanted to see him, dead or alive. Luo Qingtong originally planned to take the corpse puppet of the great young saint for a stroll in the land of the deceased immortals after her strength had improved. Firstly, it could improve the power of the corpse puppet of the great young saint. Secondly, it could also find Luo Jinghong's whereabouts. She did not expect to find information about Luo Jinghong's whereabouts from this warrior. Yes. The warrior had been frightened out of his wits by Luo Qingtong's attack, and his whole body was trembling with fear. Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, he immediately nodded and did not dare to negotiate with her. He was afraid that the girl would be impatient and kill him directly with her sword. Luo Qingtong's strength was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. This King Realm warrior no longer dared to have any wishful thinking in front of her. Miss Tong, I'll take you there." He led Luo Qingtong to the place where he got the jade pendant. Along the way, he realized that Luo Qingtong was far more terrifying than what he had seen just now. Luo Qingtong seemed to be able to see through the fog in the land of the fallen immortals. She actually led him through without any obstructions. The sudden attack of those corpses had nowhere to hide from Luo Qingtong. When the martial artist saw Luo Qingtong kill the corpses that charged out, he felt indescribable shock and joy. Fortunately, he did not play any tricks with Luo Qingtong. Otherwise, he would not even know how he died. With the ability displayed by the girl at the moment, even if she did not use her terrifying strength, she could use the fog in the land of the deceased immortals to completely kill them. However, if he did that, he was afraid that some of them would escape. Thinking of this, the warrior looked at Luo Qingtong with even more fear. The two figures quickly approached the place where the warrior got the jade pendant. Looking at the familiar scene around, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. She had an impression of this place. It was the scene in the text that she had seen in the Holy Book of the Beast Taming King Valley. Chapter 2046. It seemed that this warrior wasn't lying. However, since Luo Jinghong's belongings had fallen here, did that mean that he had died here? Luo Qingtong furrowed her brows. In fact, when Luo Jinghong entered the land of the deceased immortals, it meant that he was doomed. After all, one couldn't enter the land of the deceased immortals before their aura weakened. Otherwise, even if one had the best immortal jade bone, he wouldn't be able to withstand the aura of the land of the deceased immortals for long. He would be corroded to death by the aura of the land of the deceased immortals. The people of the beast-taming King Valley had guarded Luo Jinghong outside the land of the deceased immortals for 7 days. After making sure that he hadn't returned from the original path, they left. Because if Luo Jinghong went deep into the land of the deceased immortals, he would definitely die. They had guarded the periphery of the land of the deceased immortals to make sure that he hadn't come out and died inside. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Her figure swept toward the place that the warrior had pointed to. It's there. The warrior pointed at the place where he had picked up the jade pendant with trembling hands. It was a patch of thick grass. 2 days ago he and the people of his sect had passed by here and accidentally caught a glimpse of the jade pendant. So he had picked it up. After all, in the land of the deceased immortals, anything that wasn't corroded by the aura of the land of the deceased immortals was considered a treasure. He had hung the jade pendant around his neck. In the past 2 days it had blocked several attacks for him. Especially this time, if it weren't for the jade pendant, he would have died under Luo Qingtong's attacks. Watch him. Luo Qingtong instructed Little Pig and leaped into the grass. The place where the jade pendant had fallen was a little empty. Compared to the dense grass in other places, there seemed to be fewer weeds here. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. In a place like the land of the deceased immortals, ordinary weeds couldn't grow. Only the corpse grass that specialized in absorbing corpse aura and death aura could grow. The corpse grass specifically grew on rotting corpses. Generally speaking, as long as the corpse grass grew, there must be corpses below as nutrients. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. The bloody light in her eyes flickered as she scanned the area where the weeds were. Soon, he discovered that there were many corpses lying in a disorderly manner under the weeds. These bodies were buried deep in the ground. Their lying postures were very strange. Luo Qingtong glanced around and did not see Luo Jinghong's body. She frowned slightly. Suddenly, she realized that the way these corpses were placed was a little strange. Moreover, these corpses were neatly cut open with wounds on their bodies. As the aura from these wounds flowed to the places around them, one could see traces of human carvings. These marks had been carved for a very long time, and it was almost impossible to see their existence. They were also thickly covered by the soil. If not for the fact that Luo Qingtong's blood eyes could see the ground clearly and could see the positions of the corpses and the wounds on their bodies, she would not have known that these marks had existed before. This is a formation? Luo Qingtong looked at these corpses in surprise. Using their own strength as the foundation, they had constructed a spatial cross-domain formation. Bang! Luo Qingtong raised her hand. Chapter 2047. Schwa. Luo Qingtong used her hand as a sword, following the traces that were no longer visible, drawing on the ground of this patch of grass. The blood-red pupils in her eyes flickered as she drew and practiced while restoring. As for the Saint King Realm cultivator next to her, he was already dumbfounded. There were corpses in this patch of grass, and there was also a hidden array. This was something that the Saint King Realm martial artist did not expect. Boom! After Luo Qingtong restored this array in an instant, there was a boom. The surrounding fog surged and countless yin qi and death qi gathered, forming a huge vortex in front of Luo Qingtong. However, this vortex was constantly rotating, and there was no sign of tearing space. This was not to say that the array drawn by Luo Qingtong was wrong, but that the driving energy of this array was not enough. If Luo Qingtong guessed correctly, this array was driven by the power of the eruption of the aura of the entire land of the fallen immortals at that time, tearing space. This array was left behind by Luo Jinghong? Besides this, Luo Qingtong had no better explanation. She carefully observed these corpses and found that most of them were people from beast-taming King Valley. Some of them were yin corpses. Luo Qingtong carefully recalled and found that these people from beast-taming King Valley were indeed people she had seen in the images of the words in the holy book. They were all people who had chased after Luo Jinghong before, and then the latter was forced into the land of the fallen immortals, bringing some of them with him. These people from beast-taming King Valley were the people who were dragged into the land of the fallen immortals by Luo Jinghong at that time. In Luo Qingtong's mind, a picture was quickly pieced together. It was Luo Jinghong who deliberately entered the land of the fallen immortals. He knew that under the siege of beast-taming King Valley, he would not be able to escape, so he deliberately came to the land of the fallen immortals. His idea was not to perish together with the people of beast-taming King Valley, but to use the aura of the land of the fallen immortals to tear space and risk leaving True Spill continent. When he entered the land of the deceased immortals, it was not long after the aura of the land of the deceased immortals had erupted. In the land of the deceased immortals, there should still be remnants of the powerful aura from the explosion. After confirming this, Luo Qingtong was very sure that this formation was left by Luo Jinghong. The other party was not dead, but had left through the array formation. This result was very gratifying for Luo Qingtong, because she didn't have to bring a corpse and bad news back to Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi. Luo Jinghong's departure meant that there was still hope for him to survive. Although the one he had activated was a chaotic teleportation array, it was still very powerful. The so-called chaotic teleportation array was a random teleportation array. It was the easiest interdomain teleportation array to set up and activate. That was why Luo Jinghong was able to use the power of the Qi eruption of the land of the deceased immortals and his own strength, which was not very high, to activate this Dharma array. However, at the same time, this formation array represented an extremely great danger. This magic array had no protection when it tore through space and teleported people out. Everything depended on luck. If he was lucky, Luo Jinghong could pass through this Dharma array unscathed and be teleported to a safe place. Chapter 2048. At that time he would still have a slim chance of survival and would not be able to escape misfortune. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's eyes became very cold. It was a pity that her eye technique was not enough to go back more than 10 years and see where Luo Jinghong had gone through this array. However, as long as this array was still there, she would always have a chance to find out in the future. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong immediately waved her hand and the turf that she had lifted flew back and covered all these corpses. The thick soil also covered these corpses again. Soon, this place was restored to its original state. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and made a mark that only she could see. At the same time, she set up a maze here to prevent anyone from passing by and destroying this array. In this way, when her eye technique improved to a certain level in the future, she could come back and restore this array to trace the place where Luo Jinghong had gone. No matter what, she wanted to see him alive and dead. Even if Luo Jinghong had died in the space turbulence, she wanted to confirm his death. Otherwise, she would never give up. After doing all this, the place where the grass was magically disappeared in front of them with a swish. When the Saint King Realm cultivator saw this scene, his fear of Luo Qingtong grew even more. Array Master Luo Qingtong was actually an Array Master. And looking at the young girl's casual manner, her attainments in Array Masters were not ordinary. Combined with the various abilities that Luo Qingtong had shown along the way, the Saint King Realm cultivator was even more horrified. Because he knew that the reason why Luo Qingtong didn't hide anything in front of him wasn't because she trusted him, but because she already treated him as a dead man. And a dead person would not reveal secrets. Seeing Luo Qingtong turn around, he was very frightened. He quickly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Luo Qingtong. "Miss Tong, please let me go. I'm willing to listen to you and tell you everything. I promise I won't reveal any of your secrets. I dare to swear to the heavens that if I ever mention any of your secrets in this life, I will be struck by lightning and will never be reincarnated." The Saint King Realm cultivator's face was filled with fear as tears streamed down his face. Luo Qingtong's strength was too strong. With all kinds of strange abilities, he had no confidence that he could escape from the other party. If he did, he wouldn't have been so obedient as to bring Luo Qingtong here. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes at him. She never had the habit of leaving behind any hidden dangers. Most of his secrets had been exposed in front of the other party. If he were to let the other party off, what if he were to risk his life to tell the people of beast-taming King's Valley and Celestial Palace? A trump card that was exposed in the open was no longer a trump card. Furthermore, exposing one's abilities to the public was even more likely to lead to disaster. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. She didn't give up the intention to kill. At this moment, the Saint King Realm cultivator suddenly said, "By the way, Miss Tong, if you're going to cause trouble for the people of beast-taming King's Valley and Celestial Palace, you can go to Broken Star Valley." Chapter 2049. Translation: The Saint King Realm cultivator was trembling with fear, not daring to hide anything from Luo Qingtong. Whether Luo Qingtong was willing to let him go or not, he was prepared to tell Luo Qingtong everything he knew. What if the girl was moved and let him go? In fact, this cultivator did the right thing. Luo Qingtong hated threats the most. Anyone who dared to threaten her, even if they didn't die on the spot, Luo Qingtong would make them pay the price later. But at the same time, she was also very particular about reciprocity and exchange of equal value. This cultivator sincerely begged for mercy, and deliberately told her about the people of beast-taming King's Valley and Celestial Palace. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. Looking at him kneeling on the ground and kowtowing, she dispelled the idea of killing him to silence him for a moment. "Open your mouth." Luo Qingtong looked at him and suddenly said. The Saint King Realm cultivator was stunned for a moment, then subconsciously opened his mouth. Swish. Luo Qingtong flicked her index finger, and a pill entered his mouth at this moment. "Leave this place immediately in half an hour. Don't mention anything related to me in this life. Go." As she spoke, she directly drew a map for the Saint King Realm cultivator to leave this place. It was exactly half an hour, to ensure that the other party wouldn't have time to tell anyone about her in the fallen immortal land. As for what the other party said after leaving, it was his own business. Luo Qingtong didn't care. So what if the people outside knew about her? Not to mention whether they would believe it or not. Even if they believed it, so what? Luo Qingtong's target was only the people of beast-taming King's Valley and Celestial Palace. As for her ability, it would be exposed sooner or later. She couldn't hide it forever. However, Luo Qingtong believed that with the intelligence shown by this Saint King Realm cultivator, he would use all the information he knew in exchange for reducing her murderous intent. He wouldn't risk his life just to expose his abilities. "Yes. Thank you, Miss Tong, for not killing me. Thank you for sparing my life, Miss Tong." The Saint King Realm cultivator was so excited he couldn't even speak coherently. He had already felt Luo Qingtong's killing intent before, but he didn't think that she would really change her mind because of his words. He had not guessed wrongly earlier. This Miss Tong was really someone who repaid kindness with kindness and revenge with vengeance. As long as you don't play any tricks on her, tell her everything and sincerely beg for mercy, she will still let you off. This Saint King Realm cultivator felt as if he had just survived a disaster and kowtowed several times to Luo Qingtong. Then he hurriedly ran out along the route Luo Qingtong gave him, not wanting to stay for even a second longer. Looking at his back, Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. The pill she gave him clashed with the yin qi and death qi. If he didn't leave the land of the fallen immortals within an hour, he would die. So she wasn't worried that he would not follow her arrangement. Because if he did, he would die. Or he would court death himself. It was no different from killing someone to silence them. "Let's go." Luo Qingtong waved her hand and let Little Pig return to her. Then she rushed to the underground nest. She wanted to help Xiao recover his strength before going to Broken Star Valley. She didn't expect that the people of beast-taming King's Valley would expose the location of Broken Star Valley and call for help. Chapter 2050. It seemed that they had encountered a lot of trouble in the Broken Star Valley. Even the people of the Celestial Palace couldn't get the fifth part of the art of beast taming from the ground. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up as she thought about it. Since that was the case, she would go and cook for them. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed towards the underground lair and quickly rushed back. However, as soon as she got close, she heard a series of screams coming from the front. "Ah! Help! Help!" A group of people were fighting with the corpse puppet of the great young saint in front of them. They were in a sorry state except for a few people at the front who could fend off the corpse puppet's attack. The others were screaming desperately under the attack of the corpse puppet. Their voices were full of fear. Ah! Their voices were sharp, and one of the women who was about to be caught by the corpse puppet directly pushed out a young girl behind her. "Go to hell. Yunxi, it's all your fault for bringing misfortune to our Yun family. For our Yun family to have a descendant like you, we really have 8 lifetimes of bad luck." The middle-aged woman's voice was sharp. She was only a mid-level Saint Lord. Under the attack of the corpse puppet, she couldn't resist at all. She simply pushed Yunxi out. Anyway, this B*TCH was useless to the Yun family. If it weren't for the possibility that she could seduce Luo Qingtong, they wouldn't have brought her to the land of the fallen immortals. This B*TCH deserved to die in the Yun family. It was better than bringing disaster to them. Thinking of this, the middle-aged woman suddenly pulled Yunxi out from behind her and threw her to the corpse puppet of the great young saint. Her actions were straightforward and ruthless. Obviously she had wanted to do this for a long time. Yunxi had been pushed aside by the crowd. Now that she was in danger, she couldn't react at all and was pushed out by the middle-aged woman. Of course, even if she reacted, she couldn't resist. Because the middle-aged woman was much more powerful than her. She was just a girl who hadn't even reached the saint realm. How could she compare with the middle-aged woman who was a mid-level saint lord? He could only wait for death with a look of despair. In fact, she should have died a long time ago, right? Yuanxi mocked him in her heart. If it wasn't to lure Luo Qingtong out, they wouldn't have let her live until now. Now this was merely a form of release. Thinking about this, Yuanxi felt relieved. These people didn't want to believe that she had nothing to do with Luo Qingtong. In fact, she had nothing to do with Luo Qingtong. The only reason she had spoken up for Yun Yan in the beast-taming King's Valley was because she also wanted to deal with Yun Yan. It was impossible for them to use her to lure out Luo Qingtong. Rather than being tortured by them and living in pain, it would be better to die cleanly. Thinking of this, Yuanxi stopped resisting and allowed the corpse puppet of the great Yong saint to grab her. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong heard Yuanxi's name from afar and immediately raised her eyebrows. When she saw the appearance of the girl being pushed out by the middle-aged woman, she immediately confirmed her identity. It was the girl she had met in the beast-taming King's Valley, Yun Yan's older sister, Yuanxi. Chapter 2051. The other party seemed to be in a very bad situation. She wondered if it had something to do with her identity being exposed. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she immediately used her mind to control the corpse puppet of the great Yong saint and made it leave this place. She also marked out the locations of several Yin corpses that she had discovered on her way back, so that it could hunt and increase its strength. Go over and take care of it. Don't let it be hunted by others. The corpse puppet had been severely injured when fighting against those people previously. If not for this, Yuanxi and the others would have been killed long ago. Luo Qingtong was speechless when she saw that the strongest among them were only at the peak of the Saint King realm. These people dared to provoke the corpse puppet with such little strength. They were really tired of living. Did they really think that the corpse puppet was easy to bully just because it was severely injured? If Luo Qingtong hadn't come back, these people would have all been killed by the corpse puppet here. At this moment, the corpse puppet of the great Yong saint had become ferocious because of the group of people in front of it. However, after receiving Luo Qingtong's order, it still forcibly withdrew its hands that were about to poke Yuanxi. Then its figure flashed and it disappeared in front of everyone with a roar. Seeing the corpse puppet disappear, everyone felt an indescribable lingering fear in their hearts. At this moment, Yuanxi was prepared to be torn to pieces by the corpse puppet. But unexpectedly, the corpse puppet suddenly turned around and left. Her heart pounded violently. Before she could recover her senses, she suddenly heard a voice not far away. Yuanxi, why are you here? Hearing this voice, Yuanxi was slightly stunned. Then she raised her head abruptly and looked in disbelief at the young man who was walking toward her. Yes, it was the young man. Luo Qingtong had already disguised herself on the way back. She planned to go to Shattered Star Valley later, so she naturally couldn't reveal her identity. Her and Naitai's appearances had already been exposed. In addition, the girl's identity was too eye-catching and suspicious, so Luo Qingtong simply disguised herself as a man. In any case, when she was in the southern and eastern regions, she had dressed as a man. Ordinary people could not tell her true gender at all. As soon as Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, Yuanxi recognized Luo Qingtong. There was no other reason. When Luo Qingtong opened her mouth, another voice was transmitted into her mind. I'm Night Eye. With just a few words, Yuanxi immediately understood the identity of the handsome young man in front of her. Looking at Luo Qingtong's completely different outfit and voice, Yuanxi was very surprised. She almost couldn't help but exclaim out loud, but in the end she forcefully held it back. You, she looked at Luo Qingtong and hesitated a few times. She didn't know how to address Luo Qingtong. However, the girl's voice rang in her mind again. Yijio. Luo Qingtong was not afraid that someone would guess her identity because of this name. In this world there were many people with the same surname. Would the people of the Beastmaster Valley suspect everyone with the surname Yi? They would die of exhaustion. What's more, her disguise was the best cover. Sure enough, after Yuanxi announced her name, it didn't attract much attention from other people. Chapter 2052. Who are you? What's your relationship with Yuanxi? How do you know her? She interrogated him to get to the bottom of it. Yuanxi looked at Luo Qingtong nervously, not knowing what she would say. If the girl couldn't explain, Concubine Li would be suspicious. We've met a few times before. Why are you questioning me? Luo Qingtong looked at Concubine Li with a half-smile. She was the one who had pushed Yuanxi to her death, and her words seemed to be full of hatred for Yuanxi. Did she have a grudge against Yuanxi? Was it related to Yunyan? Otherwise, why would she look at Yunxi with such hatred? Luo Qingtong was thinking this when she heard Yunxi say to concubine Li nervously, "That's right, I met Yi Jiu on the way back to the family. He saved my and Yunyan's lives." Concubine Li, why are you questioning her like this? As soon as Yunxi spoke, Luo Qingtong immediately understood the identity of the middle-aged woman opposite her. Concubine Li? If she remembered correctly, Yunyan and Yunxi were sisters born of a concubine and Yunyan was born of a concubine. This concubine Li couldn't be her mother, could she? As Luo Qingtong thought this, she heard concubine Li shout at Yunxi angrily, "Shut up, there's no room for you to speak here. If it weren't for you, you jinx, how could our family be so unlucky? How could we meet such a strong Yin corpse for no reason? It's not enough that you've harmed our family and Yun are outside, now you're causing us trouble here. Who knows what kind of person you've brought here? If she's like that Luo Qingtong, are you trying to kill us all? You piece of trash, B****, why don't you just die?" Her voice was shrill and her expression was vicious. She looked as if she hated Yunxi to death. The others looked indifferent and didn't say anything. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. "Alright, didn't you want to know my identity? I'm a disciple of the Bright Heart sect." The Clear Heart sect was the sect of the group of people that had just been killed by Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and threw over an identity token she had obtained from them. This was something she had found on those people before. At that time she thought it would be better to be prepared. She didn't expect to use it so soon. Bright Heart sect? Receiving the identity token that Luo Qingtong threw over, the Yun family patriarch's expression was extremely stern. That was a fourth-class sect. He stopped concubine Mother Li with a sharp expression. After checking Luo Qingtong's identity tablet, she immediately nodded towards Luo Qingtong with a respectful expression. "So, little young master is a disciple of the Clear Heart sect. I wonder why you are here alone." The sects in the land of the deceased immortals moved in groups. Even a relatively scattered family force like the Yun family was the same. Chapter 2053. "Oh, I'm going there too." Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. She looked at the patriarch of the Yun family and chuckled. "My sect is going there to help Beast Taming Valley and Celestial Palace. Are you guys going there as well?" The patriarch of the Yun family felt even more relieved after hearing Luo Qingtong's words. Because Broken Star Valley was full of people from Beast Taming Valley and Celestial Palace, if the young man in front of him was really related to Luo Qingtong, he wouldn't dare to go there with them. Now that the young man had taken the initiative to ask, he thought that he should really be a member of the Mingxing clan. He had just met Yunxi a few times before and saved her life. Thinking of this, the patriarch of the Yun family became even more enthusiastic toward Luo Qingtong. Yunxi covered her mouth to suppress the surprise in her heart. Luo Qingtong wanted to go to Broken Star Valley with them? But that place was full of people from Beast Taming Valley and Celestial Palace. And there were also people who had been summoned by Beast Taming Valley and Celestial Palace to help them. What if Luo Qingtong's identity was exposed and she was discovered? She just wanted to tell Luo Qingtong to leave quickly. She didn't expect that the young man would take the initiative to ask to go with them. She looked at Luo Qingtong and opened her mouth. She didn't know what to say in front of so many people. Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. Seeing the worry in Yunxi's eyes, she immediately transmitted a message to her. "It's okay." Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. She had been looking for an opportunity to go to Broken Star Valley. Now that she was going with the Yun family, it would be easier to hide and less likely to attract attention. As for why the Mingxing clan didn't go to Broken Star Valley, it had nothing to do with her, right? Luo Qingtong wasn't worried about how to explain it to the Yun family. There were so many dangers in the land of the deceased immortals. Who knew why the Clear Heart sect's people were delayed? Of course, the reality was that they were all dead. But if she didn't say anything, who would know? They set off for the Broken Star Valley. Yunxi relaxed a lot after receiving Luo Qingtong's message, but she was still a little worried. Why do you want to go to Broken Star Valley? The people from Beast Taming King's Valley and Celestial Palace are all there. She and Luo Qingtong walked behind them, pretending to talk about old times, but in fact they were very anxious. She vaguely guessed that Luo Qingtong might be looking for trouble with the Beast Taming King Valley. However, the other party's idea was too bold. That was a first-rate sect. Celestial Palace wasn't weak either. With the support of the Star Alliance, Celestial Palace had the strength of a second-class sect. If there were no accidents in the future, it was only a matter of time before they became a first-rate sect. If Luo Qingtong wanted to look for trouble with them, wouldn't it be the same as walking into a trap? Luo Qingtong couldn't explain herself to her, and she didn't like to expose her trump card for no reason. Hearing this, she smiled and didn't answer. Instead, she asked about Yunxi's situation. What's going on with you now? Did the people from Beast Taming King's Valley look for trouble with you? When Luo Qingtong saw Yunxi, she knew that she might have implicated her. It was even more obvious when she heard concubine Li's words. Presumably, the Yun family already knew that she had spoken for her and dealt with Yun Yan. Chapter 2054. It's okay, this has nothing to do with you. Yunxi looked at her and shook her head. At that time, it was her own idea to deal with Yun Yan, so it was natural that the people of Beast Tamer Valley would come looking for her. It had nothing to do with Luo Qingtong. The girl didn't ask her for help. They just want to know your identity and whereabouts from me. In fact, Yunxi really didn't know anything about Luo Qingtong. After the people of Beast Tamer Valley investigated for a while and confirmed that Yunxi only wanted to deal with Yun Yan and really didn't know Luo Qingtong, they ignored her. On the contrary, the people of the Yun family were very angry at her because she offended Beast Tamer Valley and got involved with Luo Qingtong. The reason why they kept her alive was because they wanted to use her to lure Luo Qingtong out. At that time, they would be able to redeem themselves and rebuild their relationship with Beast Tamer Valley. Yunxi's tone was casual, but Luo Qingtong knew that things weren't that simple. Not to mention that the people of Beast Tamer Valley hated her to death. She didn't know what methods they used to interrogate Yunxi, but in the end they confirmed that she had nothing to do with her. Yunxi's life in the family was probably very difficult, and she didn't know what kind of torture she had experienced. Looking at the people of her family, it seemed that they all wanted her to die. Just now, when Yunxi was pushed out to die by concubine Li, many people were watching from the sidelines and were unwilling to help her. In the end, Yunxi became like this because she helped her. Luo Qingtong knew what to do. You didn't use the thing I gave you before? Luo Qingtong had given Yunxi a beast-taming spell. Now it seemed that Yunxi didn't use it. Otherwise, if she could contract with a demonic beast, the people of the Yun family wouldn't treat her like this. After all, even if Beast Tamer Valley didn't accept a strong person who could control demonic beasts, the people of the Yun family should be very happy to have such a strong person. Yes. Yunxi nodded. She looked at Luo Qingtong with a hesitant expression. Then she spoke her mind. That thing. I keep having the feeling that it's a contracted demonic beast. It doesn't have a soul at all and it's just a tool. I don't like that feeling. So in the end she didn't cultivate the beast taming incantation. When the people from the Beast Taming King's Valley came knocking on her door, she directly destroyed the beast taming law. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She glanced at Yunxi with some surprise. He hadn't expected that Yunxi would be able to see through the flaws in the Beastmaster Valley's method, and that she would be able to control herself and not practice that method. After all, many people, even if they noticed that there was something wrong with the Beast Tamer King Valley's cultivation method, would still cultivate regardless of the cost due to their thirst for power. After all, being able to contract with a demonic beast would bring him a lot of power and help. Especially if he could obtain a powerful demonic beast, that would be even more powerful. Yes. She looked at Yunxi and nodded. The Beastmaster Valley's method does have a lot of flaws. Since you didn't cultivate it at that time, then you don't have to cultivate it. When the flaws are solved, I will give you a complete beast taming incantation. She would treat it as compensation for the other party being implicated by her. Upon hearing this, Yunxi immediately covered her mouth. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.